the topic that I'm speaking on. Today I would like not to claim any expertise on the topic I'm speaking, and if I have any expertise, you probably don't want to know anyway. So, lust. I always think of this as a topic that I'd rather not talk about, but it's a part of ourselves that most of us can't get away from. There it is. It's just there. And so, we could pretend it doesn't exist, but it's going to, even if we pretend it doesn't exist. So I think the most healthy thing is to try to incorporate this into a healthy sense of who we are as people, into a healthy sense of life. It's interesting that just about the first thing, in fact, exactly the first thing that God says to the human beings in Genesis is, be fruitful and multiply. Have lots of sex, says God. Right? So the very first mention, the very first thing God says is, be sexual, right? Fill the earth. So our first mention, right, is also very positive. Which means that, right, as a church, we should do that once in a while. Right? Celebrate this. The Bible, religion exists for something other than trying to make you feel guilty about stuff. And I think celebration is a good alternative. Lust is a matter of reducing attraction simply to the physical and the sexual. And that's what's wrong with it. That we are, as human beings, complicated people of there's many parts to our personalities. And lust is just one small thing. Well, or one big thing, but it's just one. So that's the problem. Right? Which means that it can, if it becomes too big, get in the way of healthy relationships. Lust is not the basis for a relationship. It might be the basis for an evening, but that's sort of, that's not a relationship. And it twists who we are. Right? Again, positively, sexual desire is part of who we are. Negatively, if that's all we think about, then who we are is not who we should be. And so we see the story of David. Right? David. So the story actually starts really badly. Right? It's the spring of the year when the kings go off to war. So David is going off to war, Israel is going off to war because it's spring.
Huzzah!
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason to go off to war. The king in Israel has two basic jobs. Right? The first one is defense, and the second is taking care of the people who can't take care of themselves, usually called the widows and the orphans. But it's just sort of generally people who don't have their own voice. The king is supposed to speak up to them. And David was hired, David was given his job as king specifically because he was really, really good at the first of those jobs, at least. So it's spring and David goes off to war, and David doesn't even go alone. Not my job. I'm going to sit back here and Joab's going to take care of it. And I'm not going to defend us from anybody. This isn't a war that's about defense or anything except, well, it's spring. Let's go ravage some Ammonites. So the whole story just starts off really badly. And it continues really badly. And basically it says that David has two jobs as king, and he failed at both of them. Here's a perfect story of David not doing the only two jobs he has. If you've got two jobs, right, in your work, at least do one of them. I think is a good standard. Maybe even both. But if you're not going to do either of them, right? So Corey decided that he's going to stop working with teeth. Teeth are just overrated. Well, that would sort of limit his usefulness as a dentist. And we have similar things in our own job. If Blair decided she was fine with being a teacher, she just didn't want to talk to students ever. Sort of limit her effectiveness as a teacher. Right? decided that I'm fine being a pastor, but talking to you guys is just not at all interesting anymore. Right? So David's got 2 jobs. He's doing neither of them. So he sees, he wants, and he takes. Right? And it's all about, ultimately it's all about power for him. It's not about sex. Right? This isn't really a story about that, because he's got lots of wives. And I mean, it's quite possible that he could have, you know, been on his roof, seen Bathsheba bathing, got a bit excited, gone to visit one of his wives. Right? I don't know how many he's got, 6, 8, 10, whatever. Right? Someone's not doing something with that woman. Right? But no, right? I got power, I can do this. Right? It's the Bill Clinton thing. Right? I did it because I could. It's the point of having power if you don't use it. So, right, what we need to do with this, I think, right, is to move away from unhealthy relationships to healthy ones. To move lust away from being the sole focus to being just part of being healthy human beings. And also to recognize that this can be part of a positive life. Sexual desire is part of a positive life. It's not the dirty little part of your brain. Right? It's just part of your brain. There it is. You feel how you feel. It's what you do with it that's going to count. So where we want to be heading, I think at this, in this congregation, is to celebrate as much as we can positive relationships. And that's where we're going next. The other thing we started 2 weeks ago was incorporating our bodies into our prayers rather than just sitting there. And again, for some of you, this might have been a bit awkward, or others of you might have been totally awkward. That's okay. Growth is a good thing. And like I said, you don't have to do any of this. So I was thinking about today and what we were going to do. And of course, there are many hand motions associated with lust. Probably none of them we want to use this morning. And very few associated with chastity, as far as I know. There you go. So, but that's not where we're heading. We're heading toward wholeness. So what we've done so far is we started, right, with this motion, which is our motion of accepting God's love. Right? And then we moved to this one, which was finding direction for our lives, and the possibility that maybe we need to reorient our lives, and maybe you don't. Maybe you're thinking about where you want to go with your life, and that's where you're going, and so then this motion becomes just keeping on, and that's a good thing. Or maybe you need to reorient. Right? And our third motion was this, which is generosity, giving away, just letting go. Right? And today, our prayer is going to be one of examine. The prayer of examine exists to examine ourselves. And so I thought about like a big magnifying glass. And we look at ourselves with grace. It isn't like you have to feel really judgmental about how you are, right? But just to think about how your week went, right? In terms of the way you treated people. Right? And also, this motion, right, moves us toward this sense of wholeness. Right? The circle always works for wholeness. Thinking about people, the people around you as whole people. I mean, still broken, but still whole in that sort of odd way. So that's what we're going to go to now. So let's stand. And get a little space from the people around you so you can move your arms. And again, if it doesn't work for you, then just do it in your head. Relax your shoulders as much as you can. So let's begin. Let's begin by accepting the love of God. God loves you. Isn't that cool? God loves you. And good things you did this week, God wants to say, good job. And the other things you did this week, God says, I still love you. As we accept the love of God, we move our arms together in front of us to think about where it is we're going. What is your goal? What do you want to achieve? What are you trying to accomplish? If it's where you want to be going, then think about how you want to continue on this path, steps along the way, where you want to reorient yourself, turn yourself a little bit toward where you want to be going. Move your whole body. Where are you going? A lot of what keeps us from going there is all the stuff we've accumulated in our hearts and in our minds, in our houses and in our cars and all around us. So let's just give it away. Put your hands back out, upside down. Let go. All that stuff that's holding you down. All that stuff that gets between you and God. Just let it go. Bring your arms together in a circle and examine yourself in your week. Think specifically about how you treat the people you meet. Think about these people as whole people. All their good and bad parts mixed together. Take this and give it to God. Amen. So if you are following along in the Bible or on your phones, you may have noticed that there's some funny brackets around this story. Because this story wasn't originally in the Gospel of John. Somebody tacked it on later. And it got tacked on later before the numbers got put in the verses. But it is curious as to why somebody thought this story was really worth tacking on later. And then people later went, yeah, this is worth keeping, so they kept it, but it's not a John story. So usually, when the topic is lust, the assumption is that the opposite of lust is chastity. Right? If the problem is sex, then the response is don't. Nice and simple. Except that, well, let's face it, it doesn't work. And it's not true. The opposite of lust is not chastity. Because lust says that the most important thing is sex and who you sleep with. And chastity says the most important thing is sex and who you sleep with. And that's not an improvement, really. Right? It's just saying the same thing, really. It's like if I stood up here and said, don't think about elephants. Now, Will was just in Tanzania, so he was thinking about elephants anyway. But the rest of us probably weren't and are now. Right? And so, right, not thinking, right, so thinking about chastity is just another way of proclaiming that lust is really the most important thing. So we're not going to go there. I think a more useful way of dealing with lust is to recognize that it's one thing. And so to move, I don't know. I've been trying to think about this preposition, like beyond. Do we move beyond sexual attractiveness? I don't think beyond is an option either. But anyway, lacking a good preposition, we include other things. How about that? Right? That we include other things in the way we think about the people we meet, the people we see, and ourselves, because that's also part of it. So start this morning with yourself. Think about yourself. That's okay. Think about what you want to be known for. and people see you, and people meet you, and people get to know you positively, what do you want to be known for? Who do you want to be known as? What makes you a likable person? You are all likable people. I know that because I like all of you, and not just because it's my job. So what makes you likable in your own mind? Maybe, right? It's because you're hot. Maybe you think that of yourself. That's okay. Right? Yeah, you know. Some of us can't go there. Right? So, right? What else makes you likable? Think also about your friends. What are your friends' best qualities? They might be attractive. They might not. What makes them, right? Even your really attractive friends. Is that the only thing that's good about them? Is that the only reason you like them? Do they have other qualities too? Hopefully they do. You're really shallow people if that was all. They might be really awful people if that was all. But most of us are just sort of folks, right? And yet we're likable. We are lovable. So that's what we want to move toward, is to celebrate other things. Right? Sexuality is worth celebrating, but we get lots of that all week long. That's what, TV and advertising, and right? Lots of parts of our culture already do that. And again, we should do that too in the church. It's part of our life. Right? Be fruitful, multiply. Job number one, according to God. Right? But it's not the only thing God said. So let's celebrate other things. That's where I think communion is a really cool symbol in this situation. Right? Because this is a meal. Not much of a meal, admittedly. Right? But it's a specific kind of meal. Right? Bread and juice. Cranberry today. Right? And it's not hot date night food. Right? If you want to go on a real sexy date, bread and juice probably isn't what you're going to do. Right? This is friend food. Right? This is like getting a bunch of friends together, sitting around, bread, juice, maybe some cheese, probably some chocolate. Right? That's what I was thinking, like what should you do with your parents when they're sad? Give them chocolate. But anyway, that's just me. Yeah. So I invite you forward. I think we can sing the last song mostly from memory. If you don't know it, you can bring a hymnal if you want. But otherwise, I invite you forward to celebrate friendship and wholeness and plain food. Strange youth.